Hello everyone and welcome to a fireside chat here at LudoNarraCon. I am Lucy James and I am honoured to be joined by my friend and creative director of Remedy Entertainment, Sam Lake, for this chat. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here.
I was going to say, grab your coffee because we've got a lot to talk about. We can talk about your career, things that inspire you and where you see gaming going. And I guess, should we just go right back to the beginning? And I want to talk about your earliest sort of gaming memories and how you fell into this whole thing.
Yeah, goes back a long time. I remember this must have been sometime in the 80s or very, very early 80s, I would say. My first kind of a gaming machine that I got was this Space Invader plasticky thing with a little tiny joystick and a button. My dad brought it as a souvenir from his work trip. That was my first machine. Then I think I had a Donkey Kong Junior, not the kind of like two sides foldable, but the smaller one that I was playing, and then finally the big thing was Commodore 64, which was kind of my first gaming machine, and loved it and played a ton of games.
Oh my God, something is about to just fall over in my study. So while I fix that, what's your earliest memories of sort of gaming narrative? Because obviously, and we will talk about this, you're a voracious reader, you love movies and TV and everything, but I'm interested in when you figured out that, hey, gaming narratives are something that are important and impactful.
Yeah, it was with Commodore 64 games like text adventure games. I loved, even if at that point I was struggling and learning the English language. So they felt really hard. But I absolutely fell in love with the Ultima series, so role-playing games, and they kept like I started playing Ultima 2 was my first Ultima game, and every game since up to I don't know 6, I guess, just blew my mind every time about like how far forward the world building and the depth of the experience just kind of leaped between each game. And I remember back then for everything you were drawing the maps of all the role playing games on paper, and
Pre-game facts.
yes, and writing down kind of clues and notes. And I still remember I had one sheet of paper for Ultima 2, like notes, and then the next one was an actual kind of a notebook, kind of like how it went. Yeah, very much from very early on, story as part of the games was important and something that always drew me in, and just the feeling of this is a real world with characters in it and a story I'm following.
Do you still have those, the notebooks, the notes and everything?
I have some, but I from those early ones I don't think I have, which is a shame. It would be really nice to be able to look at them.
A friend of mine makes a journal every time he plays something like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, he
Right.
fully illustrates a journal.
Oh.
Takes him years to play the games, but when he does, he has this incredible, piece of physical, like an accompaniment, I guess, to mark his adventure, which I really love.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
I want to go back a little bit. You mentioned that you kind of learning English at the same time. And what was that process like? Were you kind of using, I remember when I was studying, German, they would basically put on an episode of The Simpsons in German and just go, all right, have fun. How did gaming, kind of tie into that relationship with learning a whole different language?
It played a big role, I feel. I mean, in Finland, we don't, these days more, but back then definitely we didn't have any kind of a dubbing culture. So everything, all the films and TV shows were in the original language with subtitles. So that's one area where you start to learn, because you keep hearing it and seeing the translation. But definitely growing up because of the games, like computer games were part of it, where especially if you are interested in role-playing games and all, there is story and you need to kind of understand it. And so it was a wonderful motivator to learn. Also what happened to me was I absolutely fell in love. Well, I love to read, and I love to read from quite early on. And then I, in the local library, stumbled upon The Lord of the Rings, absolutely fell in love with it and read it multiple times. But at that point, I would say that there was not a ton of fantasy books that had been translated to Finnish. And relatively fast, I realized how many more books there are in original language, in English, in the bookstore. And just wanted to read more. And I remember, I really vividly remember this moment when I kind of found my way into paperback section of the biggest bookstore in Helsinki. And there were kind of rows upon rows of paperback fantasy books, which was like, can this even be real? I remember this kind of like angel choir in my ears, like just full of wonder. And because Lord of the Rings obviously is a very thick book, which I had read in Finnish. I was looking for a very thick book and pulled out. It was Sword of Shannara fantasy book with a glowing sword and an elf and a dwarf and on the cover image. So I just picked it and bought it and came home and digged up a thick dictionary and started reading, and every word I didn't understand, I went through the dictionary and got the translation, and it took me a couple of days to get through 20 pages that way. and then I was like, yeah, this is not working. Okay, I will just read, and if I feel that I absolutely don't understand something, then I can check out the word. Otherwise, I'll just kind of like, and I think that if I ever were to go back to those early books and read them, I would discover, hold on, this isn't my memory. This isn't my memory of the story, because I probably was making up quite a bit of things, just
so in a way,
into interpretations.
In a way, yeah, you were kind of filling it with your own story using the framework of what you could understand at the time. I don't think I realized how big a fan of fantasy you were. It
Yeah,
is surprising to me that we've never spoken about The Lord of the Rings.
yeah, I went on from like obviously Silmarillion and all, and then I was reading about Tolkien and where he was drawing inspiration. I read Edda poems, the kind of like Viking uh, things, and yeah, I read so many fantasy books. Then I discovered Dungeons and Dragons. With friends, we started playing, and that was a huge part. Like fantasy was a huge part of my teenage years, both playing tabletop role-playing games and reading the books. All the way, I mean, we still play with my friends, but I kind of fell off. I think I just got on overload of fantasy, and because many of it is a bit formulaic, it just started to feel boring to me at a certain point, and then I moved on to other genres and other areas of literature. But that's kind of like where I got started, and where a lot of my passion for stories and storytelling comes from.
Have you ever read Berserk? I don't know if you've ever, are you big into reading manga and kind of watching anime?
No, I mean, I like what I've seen or read, but I wouldn't say that I have read or seen a ton. But yeah, so yeah, no, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, it's the I kind of say that Lord of the Rings was my gateway fantasy when I was a kid, and The Hobbit, obviously. But then I got into the same position of you, where I just was reading too much of it and I fell off. And then I started reading Berserk a few years ago, and it's what Miyazaki based a lot of Dark Souls on. Hi, Jellybean, my cat. And it is just it's a tough read, but it is incredible. So I'm kind of just
Cool.
I recommend
Yeah.
it to everyone.
Awesome.
But no, so you're into fantasy, you're making all your notes and pouring stories in. How did you end up working in gaming? Because did you have a moment where you realized, hey, this could be a career, this could be something that
No,
I do?
no,
No.
I didn't. By accident. I I I was studying the English language and literature at Helsinki University, and we were playing tabletop role-playing games a ton. I was game mastering, but then there were several groups going on, and I was writing a lot, like inspired by the games. And at that point, I was really thinking that I want to be a novelist. I want to write, and I was at the university when one of my childhood friends, who was part of the role-playing game group, and he was Petri Järvilehto was one of the founders of Remedy, and he was into the Finnish demo scene, where they made kind of these visual musical like demos for computers and competed in that. So out of that, basically all the founders of Remedy came from. They set up a computer game company, and Death Rally was the first game they made, and then Petri came to me, say, he obviously knew of my writing, and I was probably the only person in his close circle of
In his
friends
phone book.
who was kind of serious about writing. So he came to me and said that, well, we need some texts for Death Rally, you know, into the game, and would I be interested in writing that? And I said, yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Found a way to sneak in some story stuff into a game that had nothing to do with story. And that was, I started writing Death Rally texts towards the end of 95. So Remedy will be 30 years old this August, and later this year I will have worked at Remedy for 30 years.
What does that feel like to say out loud?
It's strange. It's like it's a big detour to getting to write a novel. But I have not
I was going to say, how's
abandoned
that
that.
novel coming along?
Yeah, very slowly, clearly. Yeah, we'll see when I retire someday.
How was writing early for Death Rally? How did it compare to the work that you were doing at the time? Did you find yourself just going, oh, I know how to do this, I know how to make it work? I mean, did you know how much of the game, I guess, had you seen? Like, was there any art? Did you know what you were kind of pouring words into, or was it just, hey, go wild?
Yeah, like I mean, it was, the slots were very clear. Like, here is a black market shop where you can buy these illegal car parts. It's 3 rows and this many characters on a row, and this is the room you can write something. But I remember I really wanted to put some style in, not just informative things, but find a style for it, and kind of like go in really loud in everything. And I remember I had been reading books by Jeff Noon, a UK-based writer who has a very strong style and very, very cool, interesting books. Vert is one of his early ones. And I was kind of like, well, something like this kind of really, really wild style. So it became this kind of a strange idea of near future alternate reality kind of a thing with this violent death rally racing happening.
And then I suppose going from that to eventually a few years later, something like Max Payne, which, how did that evolution go from your own perspective, as a young writer at the time, but also, taking something much grittier and like it's very, I don't know, introspective in a way, very dark.
I mean, there were other game concepts in between that never went further, and then what became Max Payne ended up getting funding, and that was moving forward, and I came on board basically just very strongly wanting a story, a proper story, and feeling that even if at that point there really wasn't any deeper story content or kind of like more fleshed out characters in action games, I felt it's possible, and so I was very much for those ideas. I was drawing from film noir and hard-boiled detective fiction, which is like I said that, like I love fantasy, but obviously I love many different things, and I'm I'm a big fan, have been since very young, of film noir films, and Humphrey Bogart kind of detective, uh, private eye figure, as an idea, and I really wanted to kind of bring that kind of feel to Max Payne, and also find a way to tell the story, which wasn't obvious. And back then, cutscenes were very, very clunky and crude. So that's where the idea of comic book storytelling came from. That we can do much more sophisticated story uh, with that. And yes, I grew up reading comics and love comic books as well. I like first, you know, Marvel, and I really got into all the X-Men stuff with Chris Claremont's
Claremont.
writing, and then moved on into Vertigo, more kind of like grown-up comics
Yes.
along the way, and all of that inspiration uh, was there for Max Payne, certainly. And then the other aspect of storytelling was the narration, the inner monologue, which is a very kind of a private eye, hard-boiled type of a thing.
Which point during development were you already writing for the game when they scanned your face in, and did that change your approach to writing anything? Because
Scanned,
you,
scanned.
well, took pictures of you.
Yeah, right. Uh, yeah, no. The way it went, more or less, is I was saying, let's use comic book, and what I had done uh, at the university, because I was in the Helsinki University role-playing game association, which had its own kind of a flimsy magazine that needed all kinds of content. So I had with my friends, I did a couple of covers, which was essentially us goofing around with swords and daggers, and then I don't really know how to use uh, Photoshop, but still I was, you know, tweaking them a bit, and those ended up being covers. And then there were like the association was also publishing some role-playing games, uh, and one was a cyberpunk game. So together with Petri, we took photos where I was posing. There were stupid, ridiculous thing. I remember holding a vacuum cleaner tube in my hand, and then Petri, who was great with Photoshop and art, turned that into this kind of a cybernetic gun, and
Gun.
and we had those. So I brought them to Remedy when I was talking about the comic book, and I was saying that we could use photos as the basis of the panel art, and like the way I remember how it went was because I was posing in those photos. Uh, Everybody went like, "Yeah, sure, okay, let's do that. Will you be the posing in the in the comic book as the character?" And I
But
was like,
did you think there'd be a different face?
"No, no, no." I was like, "Sure, yeah, I can pose as the character."
Yeah.
But early on, there was a very firm idea that it will be used as a foundation, and we will be kind of basically the early steps of the comic book was that Kia Kallio, who was the artist, he actually used the photos more or less as a reference and painted and inked, the art, and how the textures for models were done. They were pretty much hand drawn. So it didn't. The character initially didn't look like me to the level that you would have recognized it without a lot of squinting. But then along the way, as it was, it felt like a period of like so much advancement in the realism of the graphics. Petri actually started talking about that we should use photos as more clearly for textures. Like sure they will need to be touched up, but even if the detail level in the 3D model is very low, when we slap a photo of a brick wall on it, it will actually look like a real wall instead of drawn bricks.
So like a very early photogrammetry
Yeah,
kind of.
and this was a big leap, and I remember in the team there was resistance, like no, you can't do that. That's kind of lame and that's cheating. But like to his credit, he knew he had a vision, and we went for it. And then suddenly the characters were done the same way. No longer the text, the texture was drawn based on the photo. Now it was the photo. And even in the graphic novel, the painting and inking was just going too slow, so we photoed the image of each panel and then just put on some filters in Photoshop, and that's how it happened. I mean, that was very early in the project, but certainly I was already writing the story. Yeah.
But did it impact anything that you wrote, do you think?
I don't think so. Yeah, no. Yeah. I never kind of like that's how the character looked. And if anything it was maybe the other way around. I was trying to take notes from Clint Eastwood and Bruce Willis and all of
Holding
these.
yourself a bit differently. Yeah.
Like squinting and trying to look like a genuine tough guy.
And then I guess, like as you work on more games and you have this connected universe, and I think when you were in the Alan Wake 2 trailer, where was it? It was a Summer Game Fest reveal or something. I remember being in the room with everyone at GameSpot and everyone just went, yes! I mean, did you expect to carry that character, that face, like be involved as you are? Or was it just, I'm really interested in how that all kind of, how you and the team think about it, how you implement it, but how many opportunities it gives you in terms of telling a story, because then you have that like a backbone of a connected universe and a connected characters, and legally distinct connected characters.
And there is quite a bit of meta in it. I like. I posed for Max Payne 1, and then I do remember, I mean, Max Payne 2 was a very fast project. It was 18 months, which is, looking back, it's incredible. But in between, I went to the Theatre Academy of Finland to study screenwriting for film and TV. And then I was writing Max Payne 2, and I just felt like I know so much more about writing now, and loved that school, and really wanted to be more ambitious with the storytelling. And the timeline was so condensed that it just didn't seem possible to both. And these, like the photo shoots for Max Payne 2 were done in New York with Rockstar. They were handling it. To go for several months and be a part of that, as opposed to just like writing like a crazy person, to kind of like put everything I learned into the writing, and also even the idea of like we could actually have professional actors, pose at the characters. So So, and I do remember kind of feeling relieved in some ways, just focusing on writing. But then just this meta layer of everything, like working on Alan Wake, and him being a creator, I kind of really wanted the metaphor of what Remedy overall had gone through and kind of like the struggles along the way. I wanted to reflect that in Alan Wake's character. So the idea of he has had a lot of success writing these hard-boiled crime books, and then he decides that he stops that. He killed off his successful character Alex Casey, and now he is like, now I'm gonna do art. Now I'm gonna do something, not commercial and on another level, but then he can't. And obviously it's well documented that Alan Wake was us spending a long time like trying to figure out. We went into it. Now we know how this works, and we are so experienced, and we can create an amazing project, and everybody around the table puts in their candy store list of
It's everything we want.
Yes,
Everything we can do.
And then it was impossible, and it took a long time for us to figure it out, and that's kind of like, to me, that's Alan Wake's journey as well. He has a lot of success. He wants to move into a new thing. He can't, and it turns into a horror story. So already, because of this meta, like twisted mirror there, in Alan Wake 1, we have a couple of pages of hard-boiled fiction from the last Casey book, and we brought James McCaffrey in to give his wonderful voice to Alex Casey as well, just to have this, meta wink wink. But through the years, this idea of like how to look at it and the meta of it all ended up growing to the point where I started more and more thinking about Alan Wake 2 and the dream reality of the dark place from the perspective of like, of course, Alex Casey needs to haunt him there. And then we already had James's voice, and it just made so much sense somehow that of course I'll be Casey. The physical actor of Casey. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something that I think is very special, because I think the way that the Remedy connected universe is handled is that if you think about something like Marvel, where everything is required reading, or, it's just, there's no real, it feels like I don't know, the way that Marvel handles it, where there's just too much to actually consume, I guess, to actually stay on top of. Whereas with Remedy, it's just done with such a delight. And I think the way that, and maybe this is the thing because it's a video game, right? Where you are more engaged with it, and you will see Dr. Darling or something, or you'll see that character, and then when Matthew crops up in something else, you're like, oh, wait a minute, and so like you are more engaged with things, and it's, I don't know, it's just a really fun thing that I think you do really well that I don't really see other games kind of doing. Like there'll be an occasional wink or not, like, I mean, BioWare will have a reference, but it feels very throwaway, whereas yours feels very, very intentional. There's a long-winded way of saying that, I think. But is there pressure on having it now? Because
I love it. I get a lot of joy into using the threads that we. I mean that to me, it's wonderful for creative process and imagination. Like certainly we have ideas sketched out for the future, but a lot of it also is like, hey, actually, like this is what we did there. I have a really exciting idea how to take that and do something with it. It's like a wonderful playground for creating narrative things, and I don't know, like, to me, it feels very, very natural. Like it just feels like, you know, well, it's like play. It's you know, these opportunities, and I love kind of like thinking about like what could be done with this element and that element, and it has grown. Obviously, it keeps growing, kind of like
The wiki got bigger, much bigger.
more complex, and we have more and more kind of like potential hero level characters in there. I don't know. I'm. I guess we are making it up as we go.
But I love that though, and I think my point about Marvel that I was making really terribly is that like they are pushing you towards the next big event crossover thing, right? And that's why some of the Easter eggs don't feel like Easter eggs or references. They feel like, oh, you have to be all in on this, otherwise you're not going to get it. Whereas with the Remedy games, and it's just like, yeah, it is. It just feels like a natural, like an actual universe that exists, and it's, you know, it just it exists. It all together, and so that's the kind of thing that I love. But I wonder, like, do you ever feel? Are you ever worried that you put a reference in, and then, you know, 2 games down the line, you're like, oh, that's not going to work because of the lore? Does it ever constrain you in that way, or is it just you have such a relaxed attitude towards it? It doesn't really.
It happens.
Tie too much.
It happens for sure, and also we are getting to the point where you forget, and we are, now that we are in early stages of collaborating with Annapurna Pictures, looking into opportunities for film and TV within our universe. We were kind of the first thing, how we started, we were kind of now forced, which is a very good thing, to create this extensive Bible and timeline of our universe so far, which has been a long time coming and needed, but we have not kind of, there is just all the time so much work and deadlines and all that these kinds of things easily end up, if there is no absolute must, they keep on being pushed forward, and hence I am eternally grateful for our fans for keeping their wiki pages up to date. Like, I confess, quite a few times writing Alan Wake 2, I went to consult Alan Wake wiki for what did we say about that, and what was the date for this event, and that was the fastest way to check. Now we actually have a proper, very thick, robust Bible that you know has all of this, and Clay Murphy and Molly Maloney at Remedy put a lot of effort into creating it. So yeah. Obviously, when there is more history and more lore, then it starts to be trickier to, like it used to be all in my head, but now no longer. Luckily, won't have to carry that around all the time.
Just get that burden for the lore.
Yeah.
But I love that though, having it all out in a Bible in such a way, you never know who's going to read it on the team and it might spark an idea because they had access to the information. And so I do. And also, could be a good, like, I don't know, the Control art book is wonderful. Yeah. I'm just saying, I think people would very much enjoy, like, more Remedy weirdness.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? But what I want to talk to you a little bit about. So Max Payne 2, you said 18 months. We're obviously at the stage now where games take much longer, more higher budgets. Kind of feels like a lot more pressure to make. What was it like, shipping something as big as Alan Wake 2, a project that you've been involved with and have been on your mind for many, many years, and then having it out in the world? What's that sense of? Is it freeing? Is it even more stressful? Does it leave you with a kind of sense of emptiness because it's out now?
Yes, all
All
of
of the above.
it. uh, it 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 was freeing. It's I maybe didn't even see it very clearly through it, but looking back, because I had been trying to get the sequel to Alan Wake made for such a long time and was always failing, and then we were finally working on it. It ended up, I mean, obviously wonderful team, and they contributed huge amount of it into it. But for me, it just was a very personal project, and I was to the point of like feeling anxious of and even at times slightly desperate of just wanting my vision in and all of these different aspects of it, and wanting I really wanted to be very hands-on in directing, in writing, in acting, in working with the musicians, in working with Anssi Määttä, who is our cinematic director and live action director, like directing with him, all of these different aspects, and so it was kind of to the point of like, in a funny way, it felt like, well, my life depends on this project being realized, and it's not necessarily a healthy state of mind to stay
No.
for several years. So it was really important to get it out of my system, and I'm happy that I did, and I'm really proud of the whole team and really proud of what we achieved. And I was exhausted, and I needed to take a half a year sabbatical after. But I it working now feels lighter. Like I there is still a lot of passion and excitement about the ideas, but it doesn't feel desperate and urgent, at least not
Right.
right now, in a same way, which I'm really happy that that's the case.
I mean, you mentioned that you took a sabbatical. I mean, how else do you sort of decouple from a project, from a game that you've poured so much of yourself into? Did you just go full cold turkey? Did you use the time to step away from your laptop? Did you play games at that point and catch up with things that you'd missed? Or how do you take a break?
It was through the project. It was increasingly hard to take any kind of breaks, and it kind of ended up being pretty all consuming, in the sense that I was working a lot of nights and weekends, and kind of found myself to that I wasn't reading new stuff. I couldn't focus on that. I wasn't really playing pretty much anything. I was watching TV and film. That felt like the right kind of to be able to just watch something and enjoy it. So that pretty much ended up being and then obviously like time off and doing something else, going for a walk in the forest, and but that too, when you are in the process, like that will lead into a bunch of new ideas. uh, and then you come out of the forest and you are desperately scribbling down all the ideas in the notebook so that you don't lose them. And going back to the office, like new ideas. We are doing this now.
Yeah. Here's another notebook. Sam, you can't
Yeah,
stop bringing the notebooks in.
yeah.
We have about 5 minutes left of the chat. I do want to talk to you a little bit about the future. Where do you see? I feel like where do you see games going as an art form is such a weird and broad question
It
that
is.
you can answer in so many different ways. What is exciting you at the moment? Is it, this working with Annapurna? Is it future projects at Remedy? Is it other things that you've seen? What is the thing that keeps you as such a key creative? Like, what keeps you excited?
I mean, more and more I see it as this balancing act of new and old. I feel the path we've been on and I've been on is kind of looking back. It's a very logical pathway of coming up with certain ideas and then finding the ones that are exciting and work well, and then just being more ambitious and growing these things bigger, which I feel Alan Wake 2 was. So I don't, personally, I have a lot of ambition, just kind of like keeping adding on and kind of like going deeper into these aspects. I am very excited about our collaboration with Annapurna. We've been also trying to get TV show and film side going for a long time, many years, and it has never kind of like worked out. But I feel different with Annapurna now, and they are wonderful and kind of like really interested about the art of it and the creative side, and it feels like a genuine collaborative effort. So happy about that. But when I say new and old, I also kind of like, a lot of things excite me, new things. Yet to see the last episode of Severance,
Me either. No spoilers here.
but like, there's been amazing episodes in season 2, and very much it feels like an inspiration and gives me ideas. As one example. So there is new stuff, but also it feels like these kind of significant, mind-blowing experiences that you discover and find, like a lot of David Lynch stuff when I was a young adult and discovered, like, saw Lost Highway for the first time and these kinds of things. They are all there, and they find their way, these inspirations, into every project as well. So I kind of feel that in some way we are all shaped, teenagers, young adults, and there are these things that affect us. And yes, then new things come in, but kind of the foundation has been laid. and I feel that these foundations, there is enough there already to draw from for a creative person's whole lifetime, really. We have this urgency in our society that everybody needs to be caught up with everything. You need to play the latest games, you need to see the latest films, TV, read the latest books, and there is just so much content that can end up being stressful. But ultimately I feel we have been made at earlier age, and there is enough there to draw your unique ideas, like, that will last you all the way through.
I think that is a wonderful place to leave it. Sam, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And congratulations again on your GDC Lifetime Achievement Award. That's incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, great honor. It's funny. It's I'm still finding a way to kind of like adjust to this idea.
Yeah. But no, thank you so much again, and stay tuned for more from LudoNarraCon.
Thank you.